Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Today we are finishing up the mini series we're doing on why healing, keeping it at the forefront of our brain to keep us goal oriented and focused. Why are we walking down this painful path if it's just going to cause us pain? Because our goal is to do better, be better, and overcome those hurts and those pains that have brought us to this place of anxiety, fear, helplessness. We are worth the work. So keep going. So last video, we finished up with me kind of going through this thought process as I was driving home from a very bad day at work after several weeks of very negative and disruptive external things, circumstances, events happening that I had no control over. And I was going through the thought processes and the things that therapy had taught me. First, to stop my emotions in their tracks. Second, to explore what the real problem was, what the root cause of the problem really was. Thirdly, to stop and think rationally and logically about what was happening and whether I could even control or have any say over what was happening around me. And lastly, to stop and consider whether or not how I was feeling was actually reasonable or unreasonable given the circumstances. Was the way I was feeling reasonable considering the stimulus, or was I overreacting? Which I think sometimes can be a trigger word, that overreactive word. But it's applicable here. Sometimes when we let our emotions run away from us, it is called an overreaction. And a lot of times when we're triggered, overreactions are a result. And in this particular case, I was at my max. I had hit a speed bump, so to speak. And where I left off in the last video was I was kind of going through my thought processes as I was driving to my hair appointment. And I had gotten so far as to realize that part of the problem was a lack of control, and me realizing that I could not control others and what they were doing and how they were behaving and the decisions that they were making. And I didn't feel comfortable with that lack of control. It bothered me. But then I realized that that was only part of the problem. And that's where we're going to pick up in this video number 3, the final video in this mini series. The other part of my difficulty processing all these external events was the lack of respect being shown towards me at work. The lack of respect for my time, the lack of respect for my schedule, the lack of respect for my workload and my own deadlines and my own planning. Lack of respect. Communication struggles were nothing new in my office. This was something that I had mentioned to my boss before. It's something I mentioned to my office manager before, that people are not informed and people don't know what's going on a lot of the times, too often, and things get missed. And they had agreed that it was a problem. But even though I had made suggestions or recommendations on how we could improve communication in the office, it's fallen on deaf ears. Communication is also one of those tiny, tiny little things that anyone, literally anyone, can work on with a little bit of effort and improve. But here's the kicker. This is what it hinges on. Good communication hinges on a consideration of others. And that's exactly where the problem lies. Because unfortunately, as we all know, there's too many people that exist in this world that have zero capacity to consider others, their conveniences, their needs, their experiences, their schedule, and so on and so forth. And in my case, that's how I was feeling. Come on, guys, I have work to do. Come on, guys, I need help. Come on, guys, whatever, let's work together. You need to have a consideration for others and a mindset of others and an awareness of how you impact others and how others impact you, and have a cohesive kind of mindset if you're going to have good communication. Good teamwork actually starts with good communication and consideration for your fellow teammates. And while I was driving to the salon that afternoon, thinking about all this stuff, I came to the realization that, dang it, It is not unreasonable at all to depend on others. It is not unreasonable at all. Shouldn't we be able to depend on our boss? Shouldn't we be able to depend on our coworkers and our teammates? Absolutely, we should be able to. Being able to depend on your teammates and your boss is called teamwork and camaraderie. So even though part of me was able to recognize that feeling of being defeated was an unreasonable feeling due to the fact that certain things were out of my control, I was also realizing that I was feeling defeated reasonably due to the lack of respect towards me and my time. Not once or twice, not just a handful of times, but over and over and over again. And this is what gets you to the point where you're like, because you can only deflect so much disrespect and bullying and abuse before finally all of a sudden things start getting through that deflection shield and they start absorbing and they're working their way inside. And that's when the snowball grows and grows and you get to that point where you feel defeated. And that's when I hit the speed bump. When the snowball got so big that it just couldn't roll anymore without tremendous force. And we don't want to force anything. We need to stop at the speed bump where we're at and look around. Stop the emotions, do some investigation, and figure it out. I have successfully been able to coast over some little speed bumps over the last several months and weeks at 25 miles per hour. But at some point, I'm coasting along at only 10 miles per hour and I hit a speed bump that's big enough to stop my car, stop my healing process. And the car just can't get over that speed bump. And that's where I found myself. When my mind wandered down that path that I learned in therapy that I should explore when I have quiet time. And that was the path of my past. I needed to walk down that path again. And I needed to consider, okay, is my past at all related to how I'm currently feeling? Is my past contributing to the fact that I hit the speed bump and I couldn't go over? And I'm sure that none of you will be too surprised to hear how much sense all of this began to make to me once I looked very closely at my past and compared it to the present day, how I used to feel, what I learned through therapy, and put the whole puzzle together for myself and how closely correlated all these feelings were. They are what I like to call aha moments. Throughout my childhood, as you may or may not know, I was the scapegoated child in my family of origin. I was and still am occasionally blamed for much of the dysfunction and things that go wrong in my family. I've been labeled, I've been mocked, I have basically been told I was wrong for who I was, my very existence, since a very young age. I was expected in childhood to be who my dad had planned for me to be. I was expected to be my mom's therapist and counselor, and I was expected to hush up when my brothers victimized me in order for them to feel in control and superior themselves. They needed someone younger and more feeble that they could beat on, and they found that person in me. And I was expected to keep a hushed mouth about it. And I was expected just to take it. During my youth, I was taught to believe that I was responsible for the peace and the happiness and the satisfaction of others, my mom, my dad, and my brothers, my two older brothers. I was taught to believe that I played a role in their decisions, that I played a role in their behaviors, their actions and reactions and more. I was taught that if I did just the right thing, that everything would be fine. And similarly, if I didn't do just the right thing, that things would not be fine and that would be my fault. I was taught then, or I grew up to believe that I could to control others if I just did and said the right things. Every time I failed at pleasing these four very influential people in my life, the tears, the sorrow, the anger, the shame, the disappointment, and the victimization would ensue. Of course, then I grew into an adult whose childhood wounds are triggered every single time someone else in my adult life says or does something that I cannot control. That voice from my childhood comes back to haunt me again. You screwed up. You let me down. You disappointed me. You failed. You're not good enough. Why can't you just be normal? And you'd think I'd be aware of this by now, but I wasn't. And I'm not all the time, which is why, again, we want to keep that question at the forefront of our brains. Why healing? Why healing? What's driving us? What's the goal? Where do we want to be in a year, 5 years, 20 years with our relationships and with our own personal joy and happiness and peace in our lives? What is the ultimate driver here? I'm learning that even though I'm getting healthier, and the periods of peace and joy between speed bumps are getting longer and longer, which is a good thing, I'm simultaneously finding it easier and easier to let my guard down, and how much easier it is to get hung up on the speed bumps when they arise. So why healing? Let's go back to that. Because we want to understand our struggles, because we want clarity, to make sense of the chaos around us, because we want to overcome our emotions that can be overwhelming at times and feel suffocating, because we want to have good relationships, strong relationships, healthy relationships. We want to give and receive mutual love, respect, and kindness and thoughtfulness. Why healing? Because we seek joy, peace, and gratitude. Why healing? Because we want to be able to function on a daily basis. Why healing? Because we want to live life to the fullest. Why healing? Because we're worth it. I'm worth it, and you're worth it. This world is better and has more to offer than the heartache and the heartbreaks that we have suffered. Keep focused on why healing. Keep it at the forefront of your brain on a daily, if not hourly basis. Do your journaling, and when you hit a speed bump, just give it a little extra gas. And lastly, as always, take care of you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.